Obligations are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of obligation becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the person to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new obligations, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness for themselves and for those whom they are truly and willfully responsible for. Prudence indeed will dictate that obligations long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of obligation to which they are accustomed. Hey Fred, how you doing this morning? I stop in for a quick cup of black coffee, and Fred is loading up on 2 donuts and coffee with lots of cream. It seems like just one donut is just not going to do it to him. Fred gives me a polite grumble and a bob of his head. "How you?" Fred politely undertones. "Trying to enjoy life, I say." But my words are blotted out by the machinery of production, and I struggle to be heard. We sit down at a table. I just ponder over my black cup of coffee. "How's work, Fred?" "Hate it," Fred says. "Not the work, but having to deal with people." "Why don't you change your work then?" Fred answers, but again he cannot really hear the question over the noise of the day. "I've got kids, a wife, mortgage payments, schools, memberships, bills. I've got obligations." "You can change your bills and your job, Fred." But the machinery of obligation is too loud, and he cannot hear past the turning of the gears. I inform Fred that obligation is a most limiting kind of worship, serving military or industrial purposes, but it's probably best used with other principles like faith or adventure. Fred, the day we ratify obligation as our lone system of governance is the day the forces of foreign interest learn that the agents of governance can be manipulated, directed, or even purchased. The governance of obligation then is no longer working on your behalf or for the benefit of the intended subjects of your obligation. The judges of your life have an agenda that differ from the agenda of your founding declarations, and your lawmakers are making laws that do not really serve you or your loved ones. You work so hard, you don't even know where your obligation is leading you or what it is doing. It is you that pays the bills, Fred. Obligation is there to tax and govern. It pays nothing. Obligation sits in the tool shed of the blackmailer, the deceiver, and the wayward politician. It hangs below coercion with the glue that gets you all caught up in other people's business. It is like any tool with its own power, causing things to help right or things too wrong for the good of mankind when used alone, as we continue to elect that which is bound to act in the ill-spent hours of a faithless future. After the 2 donuts have consumed Fred, he gulps the extra-large coffee to move it all along and then says, "Josh, why do you always go off on these weird monologues? What's with you, man?" I inform him that, rather than fight the insanity of life, I embrace it with poetic ramblings. It's cheaper than paying for a therapist, and I think maybe someone else may be able to gain a new perspective on life. You might want to try it out sometime, Fred. But Fred will not become a poet today. He's got too many obligations, and all he can hear are the machines of governance turning.